Good evening, my name is Helen Anthony, Chair of the Committee on Finance, and I'm calling to order our regular meeting on Tuesday, May 28th at 5:33 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chairwoman Helen Anthony,
Present.
Vice Chairman James Taylor, Councilor Sue Engelbach here, Councilwoman Althea Gray there, Councilor Miguel Sanchez.
Yeah.
Miguel, here.
We have five present. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much, and I would like to thank Councilman Oscar Vargas for joining us this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I also would like to recognize Ken Marini, who's here from the City Solicitor's Office. Thank you very much. We also have our wonderful clerks. We have Louis Blanco here, which is great to have you back, and Donna Palazian, who is our superstar. So thank you very much.
So noted.
Madam Clerk, would you please read item number 1?
Item number 1, an ordinance amending chapter 21, revenue and finance of the Providence Code of Ordinances to add Article 19, Providence A law qualifications.
So, I think I've communicated this before, but, I think we need a little more time on the 8 law ordinance. And so I am going to ask for a motion to continue.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Anderbaugh, seconded by Councilor Graves, all in favor? All opposed? I would also like, to make a motion to, I think, address items 2 and 3 together. Does that make sense? Keith? Okay, make a motion to take items 2 and 3 and discuss them together.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Anderbaugh, seconded by Councilor Taylor, all in favor? And all opposed? Madam Clerk, would you mind reading 2 and 3 into the record?
Sure.
Thank you.
Item number 2, an ordinance authorizing the financing of the acquisition of equipment and vehicles through a lease purchase agreement in a principal amount not to exceed $20 million, authorizing the execution and delivery of a lease agreement and related instruments, and determining other matters in connection therewith. Item number 3, resolution authorizing approval of the following contract award by the Board of Contract and Supply in accordance with section 21-26B3 of the Code of Ordinances, Bank of America Public Capital Corporation, $20 million, Department of Finance.
Thank you. Would you mind swearing everyone in? That's very intensive for you that you're about to give us.
Lawrence Mancini, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you all for joining us. So I am going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I'm Chairman of the committee and the council. Thank you for this opportunity. Starting with the master lease ordinance, as you know, this is a required instrument of it. Anytime that we plan to put together any master lease, particularly when following it up with or financing instrument, the ordinance is required to list by category or department those items that would be proposed for acquisition. This process was a process that commenced at the beginning of the budget season and sometime immediately thereafter, working through all of the various departments, the finance directors, including Severe and Ms. Lindbergh, working regularly with departments and their operating needs, also identify their capital needs, and use that conversations, if you will, to assemble the list that's before you, totaling now 20 million. It originally began at 10 million.
So sorry, I think we're. Go right ahead, I'm sorry.
It originally began as a $10 million request based on adequate debt service capacity at that time. But we also realized that there were other needs of public safety, police, and fire that had to be included. So we submitted an addendum to purchasing to ask the companies that are bidding on the master lease, some 18 banks, only 4 which responded. We asked them to price it on a $20 million basis. We'll talk about that as we get to number 3, but with that said, Madam Chair, and with the committee and members of the council, we were able to assemble a $20 million asset acquisition master lease list for the ordinance, and as you know, the term master lease is a term that really means equipment finance. It is a financing, that will occur over a period of 7 years. We've been given favorable terms. The terms will include the first 2 years interest only at a rate of 4.20. But the committee should know that because 10 million of the $20 million acquisition list includes public safety, property, fire, and police equipment. Given the manufacturing timelines, particularly for fire apparatus, there is a long lead time that is at least 24 to 36 months in order to build and deliver specific fire apparatus equipment. However, we are not able to issue purchase orders or commitments unless we have an identifiable financing source. So we built the bid spec on the $20 million financing to include the $20 million, 10 million of which, if approved, can be immediately drawn for those acquisitions of general government vehicles and equipment. And while we will not be able to draw the funds for the remaining 10 million thereabouts of fire and police equipment, it will be earning interest in an interest escrow account that ranges today between 4.25% and 4.65%. The net effect of that is that in the first 2 years of an interest-only payment, it will reduce the net payment over the first 2 years to $552,000, roughly $260,000 per year between the interest earned in escrow and the amount that we pay in interest only. And the reason why that's important, the remaining 5 years will be the full payment of the 20 million over the 5-year period, locked in at 4.2% interest. In addition to that, there are 2 leases that are falling off the city books in FY25. They total $3 million in debt service payments, so that when the new payment arrives in FY27, it'll be a new cost net of only 1.5 million, because the 3 million that are falling off the books has already been built into the city's debt service program. Taking all that into consideration, Madam Chair, members of the committee, members of the council, we have analyzed the financing attributes. I must say that 4 years ago, on the historic borrowing terms, the city they were borrowed at slightly over 2%. Those terms have not existed in more than 3 years. And so, having seen multiple master leases over the period of time that we have all worked together financing, the rate of 4% is considered to be well within the average to borrow on a fixed basis for 7 years. And offering us terms of interest only, while that's unusual, we have always strived to have that term to give us the opportunity to phase into the next budget payment. So the first payment will not commence until July 1 of 2025. It'll be an interest-only payment. But in the meantime, the unutilized funds are earning interest in escrow account at 12.25%. Other banks were not able to offer that condition. Some banks outright denied giving an escrow interest earned. In fact, they said if we do it, they wanted to keep the interest. So Bank of America and Capital Corporation was the only one that we able to offer those favorable terms, and we agreed to go along with that. So what happened is simultaneously we introduced through the good offices of the majority of the table, we introduced the master lease ordinance, the document that's before you, as item number 2. That was introduced and on May 16th at the council meeting, referred to finance this evening. And at the same time, on May 6th, we had a meeting of the Board of Contract and Supply, making recommendation of the award in the amount of 20 million for the bank financing. That also was referred to the council, and it appeared on the same document on May 16th. So that this evening, those 2 separate items have traveled together to arrive this evening for your consideration, and they are considered companion, because without the financing approval of the master lease ordinance, the various equipment items would not make sense, it would not be included. So that's a general way of the proposal. I know that majority leader Taylor had asked me on a couple of occasions about the list, and I will say that, Madam Chair, we vetted this list with the departments, and they did identify their needs. If you recall, they were asked the heavy duty departments of Public Works and Parks and Rec, have your needs been identified and really meet your criteria? And the directors and their staff had given affirmative testimony that they did in fact work with the Department of Finance, work with Mr. Lindbergh as budget officer, and arrived at the list that would be more than adequate to support their equipment operations over the next several years.
May I just ask a clarifying question? So I'm sorry, over how many years? I must have lost that.
The financing lease will be a 7-year lease, with the first 2 years interest only.
Right.
The remaining 5 years will be full principal of the $20 million we paid principal interest over the remaining 5 years. The first payment of interest only will not commence until July 1 of 2025. This year is the last payment on 2 leases, the $13 million streetlight lease and a $9 million lease. Collectively, those 2 leases in this year's budget for 2025 equal close to $3 million, a little more than $3 million. So when the new payment commences in July of 2027, we will pick up a savings of $3 million by expired leases against the new cost of $4.5 million. Therefore, the new net cost will require $20 million of necessary equipment will be about the $1.5 million additional debt. I might say that all debt that the city and governments with all bonded debt and future capacity is at $73 million. You would not see that number exceeding $73 million at any point in the next 10 years, including master lease financing, capital improvement financing, and contemplated school bond financing.
I appreciate that. 73 million is the total.
Is the current today, we actually see that number declining over the next 10 years with all those leads met based upon projection.
And I'm glad you brought that up. My question is, so as the debt, we're retiring our debt, are we automatically taking on more debt to replace it every
We
year?
do, but conscientiously, not automatically, and we don't just try to substitute the payment. We try to strategically plan for when that debt service expires, and then whatever the critical needs are, certainly begin with that conversation, and then we try to, but oftentimes, the payment that matures and expires, it's sufficient to meet the new needs of a new master lease, or it may be regular bonded indebtedness, which is generally used on a 20-year life for things like the capital improvement plan or factory doing some school bonding. But it's not an automatic, it's a strategically planned process.
Okay, I appreciate that. My other clarifying question before I open it up. So we have a list of vehicles that we're going to be using the 20 million for. So this, what happens over the next 7 years if we use other vehicles? And then how are they financed?
So once again, budget and debt capacity go hand in hand. So budget capacity really means the capacity to bring on new expenditures in any budget in any year, whether it's salary, wages, fringe, pension benefits. More specifically, the debt service for the previous conversation, that's managed even further micromanaged because we know by schedule, because they're fixed payments, what's going to fall off. And when do we think we need to begin through substitution or replacement, new assets with the very same fund now. The funds that fall off now may not be able to give us as much buying power as it did, as I said, 4 years ago. 4 years ago, we borrowed at 2%, it's a little bit. Today it's at 4%. So while the payment amount is available, it may not buy us as much as we need based on interest rate and of course the current cost of those goods in the market. You know, supply chain delay and long lead delay has really put a significant fiscal impact on every municipality. It's just one of those considerations. But as vehicles begin to age, we rely upon the directors of those departments and to keep those vehicles in good working order. We do supply them with a repair and maintenance budget annually. We hope that that will be sufficient to keep those vehicles running. If it's a big ticket item, quite expensive, you know, it's not measured by road miles, unless it's measured by hours of operation, if it's a mechanical item. So we would expect that between the city employee staff that are trained in mechanics and hydraulics, along with outside maintenance, and a budget that supports that annually for maintenance, that they will be kept in good running order, certainly sufficient to last more than the 7 days.
All right, before I open it up to questions, I'm gonna recognize that with Councilor Mary Kay Harris with us. Thank you so much for attending tonight. So, hey, I'm gonna open it up for questions. Yes, Councilor Taylor.
I just want to say thank you. I know I've been a pain in the last 6 months to come on. Never pain, but no, I've been very adamant about that we need this master lease.
If I may say so, Mr. Lee, you've done this for ages. Thank you for pushing.
And I'm glad that we're doing, because I talked to, and as other people probably talk to, Fox and EPW people, and we know that they need vehicles, and I'm glad that we I'm glad 10 million was set aside for them, because in the past, everything gets convoluted and the department gets more than the other, and this is pretty fair. It's even 10 million there, 10 million to the public safety, so I just want to say thank you for all the hard work and going into this. And just to answer on the other question, I know, Chair, we had a few years ago, we didn't have money set aside for the fire trucks. We were buying like 7 trucks, so that's, just to answer your question, what we're gonna do, that was kind of, remember we didn't have the money, we found the money, whatever it was, we ended up getting the fire trucks that was needed, so if that does happen again, it's done.
And if I may,
Yes,
Chair, and committee council to add to that conversation, 4 years ago, we began by thinking we would borrow $15 million in general purpose equipment, non-public safety. During those negotiations and discussions and deliberations, we learned that there was critical need to replace aging and unsafe equipment, not only to the fire men and women, but to the public. And we were asked, could we identify $5 million more? At the time, we worked with the fire department and the fire units of it, and we thought we could do that, and we did, because the interest rate was so attractive. So we took what was $15 million and turned it into $20 million. And we did say at that time, with a modified commitment, that we would continue to review the aging of the equipment at the appropriate time for the benefit of public safety and employee safety. We would consider. So, Chair and Salida, that's why this year, while we thought we'd start out at 10, we rapidly realized that we needed 20 million to complete the exercise to include both fire police. I might want to point out though, for the grounds maintenance departments of city government, of the approximate 10 million that goes to that, 4.5 million, maybe 4.6 million we give to public works. Another 2.8 million we give to the parks. The total amount that's given to public works and parks represents 75% of that $10 million dedicated to general purpose. The remainder is the PEMA, communications, public property, and sustainability, all modified and identifiable needs that will serve the city and people who operate that equipment well over the next several years.
Yes, please.
And that 7 point whatever million you said between public works and parks, that covers what they asked for.
Every single item that was requested by the department throughout the entire divisions, from the director working with their staff, working with our finance director, Ms. Silveria and Ms. Lindbergh, throughout the entire budget season, identified the needs of the department, priced them, and relied on that information to provide the ordinance.
Other questions? Yes, Council Randall. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Just a few quick questions. One is just from a process perspective. I assume as we go out to bid for each of these items, they'll still go through the regular board of contract and supply process and come back to the committee, or?
Yes, so what we do is in the area of finance, because of the uniqueness of finance and the special expertise that's required, what we have used as a practice that's been adopted by the city is that we engage the city's fiscally, the space hill prosecutors. They put together the RFP, we review it, we approve it with the knowledge of the finance team and treasurer. We authorized them to send it out to the wide world of participants. They did. They sent it out to 18 institutions that generally offer public and municipal lease finance. They only received 4 back. And they include Bank of America, Santander, JP Morgan, and a small company out of Maine called MLC, which ironically, they did do a street like this for us some 9 or 10 years ago. When they come back, they analyze that and they provide us with the best details per our request. Our request always includes interest only, at least the first year, to set the new budget so that we're not having a lagging budget. We get the best terms available. If the funds cannot be used within the first 12 months, which is pretty standard because it takes a while to borrow, but we ask for an escrow interest arrangement that will generate interest per annum, which we did. Relying on their recommendation, we prepare our letter to the board of contract. So we bring that process right back inside and it moves through the process as any of the one would by a letter of communication explaining all that to the board of contract. And it did appear at the board of contract meeting on May 6th. And because it was more than 1 year or greater than 500,000, it was referred routinely to the council and then from the council came before the finance.
Okay. Oh, but each of the individual things will come before us. And all of these are. So as like parks guys
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Furniture or something.
Absolutely, absolutely. The rules of engagement are such that any acquisition greater than $10,000, if you know, under the rules of law, absolutely. This is just to approve the listings,
Oh,
get
yeah,
it structured, and then approve the financing mechanism
oh,
to
yeah,
buy them. But each time an acquisition is necessary, it has to go to the board of finance.
okay. And then, yes, please. As we pay this off over the next 7 years, where in the budget will we see those line items?
It'd be that service line on the budget, as an example, this year that would occur on page 111 through 114.
11 and 14.
Your schedule, will be that's the schedules for the upcoming year, FY
Oh, so it'll
25.
be like in each
You
department.
see,
Debt
you see
service capital?
every item of debt service that the city manages company appears in a debt service schedule, and it's part of the general fund. budget.
So there's a specific budget for all of our debt service.
Oh, okay.
So all of the bond payments, all of the master lease payments are included in the debt service budget, which is what Chief Mancini was referencing.
Oh,
So we almost budget that like a department. It's
Right.
not
Okay,
allocated.
okay, okay. But the pension payments are separate?
They are listed as pension contribution,
Yeah,
pension contribution.
yes, pension is allocated across departments per employee. Because that's considered a backup.
I have two more quick ones. One is really stupid, but I'm still gonna ask it in the, because we are. In the proposal from Bank of America, they consistently spell their name bank with a C instead of bank with a K.
Correct.
And what's up with that? Because in our document, what we are approving is bank with a
Yeah,
K.
they actually, that may have been a misprint in the master lease summary, but their legal name is BANC, Bank of America. Capital Public Capital Corporation.
Okay,
The correct name as it appears in the letter.
okay, yeah, because the letter had Bank of America, BANC.
Yeah, it is BANC.
So do we have, this is so stupid, but I'm married to a linguist, so like, I just look at it right. Do we, if we're approving this to Bank of America Public Capital Corporation, do we have to spell it with a C here?
Yes, I
Okay.
didn't realize that on your document.
Yeah, on the document, it's with a K, then it's.
So is it, I guess I'm gonna ask, Attorney Chevrolet, maybe, whether,
You don't matter, yeah, I'm looking at something now that, we relied on the spelling from the Hilltop, and I see it spelled like Bank of America with a K, but it also appeared as a C.
I know all these companies have like such specific.
Yeah,
names, but it's like-
Sometimes if it's a subsidiary of another company, they use the C, and so
Yeah,
probably just a sign, but, we will, be sure to get the accurate correct spelling. I believe it is. I thought I saw the C, it's appearing as a K.
is the actual resolution that's attached, is it incorrectly referred to bank? It's not sure. And,
yeah, it's here, it has, it's spelled B-A-O, and
we
we
are
are
included in the actual resolution that we voted on, so, we have it attached. I think she's. Like that.
There's a lot, I saw. Yeah, the B-A.
All right, that's, so that is on page.
So Madam Chair, I'm looking at the actual letter that was submitted by Bank of America. Merrill Lynch, their group, and it was submitted by their Vice President Charles McGuire in response to the bid response, and it says. You turn no later than April 17th, to bank the ANC of America Public Capital Corporation. So finance relied on the legal letter as provided by the entity.
Okay, and then what I'm focused on is just amending the resolution.
Right.
Supporting this, we don't need to have amended, so may I have a motion to amend the resolution to change the K in bank to C. Okay, so moved by, Councilwoman Graves, seconded by Councilor Sanchez, all in favor?
Aye.
And all opposed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry for that.
No, that's all right, thank you for the catch.
Thank you.
And then I have one final question, if that's okay. For all the cars that we're planning to buy, and maybe this is the question of the department directors, but is there some sort of like form or training that
staff go through before they're allowed to have access to a city owned vehicle? Like, is there some sort for insurance or any other liability? Like, do they have to go through some sort of?
Well, first of all, they lie if they drive a vehicle if they don't have a.
Yeah, they must have a driver's license, I imagine that.
Vehicle of higher rated, they need CDL.
Yeah.
Beyond the normal training that's given, like every city employee who operates a vehicle, they have to inspect the vehicle every day, walk around the vehicle, make sure the air is working, make sure the brakes are working. There is a protocol that other property does demonstrate that.
Okay.
Yes, Counselor Graves.
I'm gonna go with the vehicles, the SUVs. There seems to be, big discrepancy in the pricing from department to department. 50,000, 35,000, 40,000. They're all SUVs. Why is there a discrepancy?
Yes, sir. So when departments submitted their capital request, they identified a specific make and model of SUV that they had secured pricing on. However, because of the scarcity and supply chain issues, we did not want to lock in a particular department to a Ford Escape versus a, Nissan Pathfinder, right? So we wanted to give them flexibility to purchase what was available as long as it met the needs of what they need. And so the pricing fluctuates from department to department based on what vehicle they priced in particular and they're looking to purchase. For example, the $50,000 SUVs were generally Ford Explorers that they were looking to purchase. However, Ford Explorer is not available. We didn't want them to be locked into buying a Ford Explorer. We wanted to make sure that they had an allocation available to purchase an SUV in the event that the one they had originally priced, that make and model was unavailable.
If I may, Madam Council, if I could just add to that testimony, which is very active. In the past, we would give specific vehicle make model on the master lease. And we learned through experience that particularly in the current economy, the supply chain, that the vehicles do not exist. And it would technically then require us to go back to the leasing company to ask for a change. If we found a vehicle that was comparable, not identical. And in some cases, bond council would say, you gotta go back before the city council, get the council to approve it. So the council has advised, we will not name by specific brand or model, but general equipment, and then obviously you're gonna go up to bid for any of these items, and at that time, what's available will be obviously what the city will pursue, but I believe as Ms. Lindbergh testified, the price range was compiled at that moment in time as we were asking them to submit their list.
Okay. The other one is the emergency vehicles, or the vehicles that they were allowed to take home. This, I thought it was supposed to be the emergency type things, but it seems like there's more taking home vehicles, employee vehicles being taken home. What is the protocol for that? Why are they doing it? And now we paying for the gas and everything else when they're going home and doing errands or whatever.
So by the tenants of employment, the vehicle is required to be taken home, because you're on 24/7 standby duty. It includes the cost to operate that vehicle, even if the director or the subordinate have requested not to take the vehicle home. In many cases, by the nature of their duties, they are required to be on standby call. And sometimes if it's beside the vehicle, are equipped with special apparatus, computers, and other equipment or life-saving equipment that may be necessary if you call arrive in the non-traditional work.
And now, I believe you answered this before, but refresh my memory. How many vehicles are being taken home?
Stand by.
I think you answered that one time before.
I'm not fully acquainted with the number of
Okay.
the property question, but I'm happy to get that information to the internal order as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
Yes, Counselor Smith. I'm sorry, didn't finish Counselor Graves?
Yes, I know.
Okay,
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Chairwoman.
yes.
Thank you, finance team. Just to get a little bit more understanding on the two parts, so say we approve this, it goes through finance or through the council. when can the general department start buying vehicles? Like next couple
If
months?
you would, if the committee this evening was kind enough to give us this consideration on it. And while we don't take risk in finance, if it was to get to the council and first passage was gained, I would probably believe that second passage would be interrupted. We could begin having departments stop placing orders as quickly that all would say 2 weeks, still 2 weeks, not for the time to process the requisition, it's for the inventory that's on the lot. We had an occasion, we came before the finance committee back in February. You may recall for a matter of $400 difference between whether this is very work with the parks department, public works, to find a substitute vehicle. You remember, it was supposed to be a Chevy, but we found before, and it was sitting on the lot at somewhere in the auto dealership in Johnston. And we made that happen, thank you to the finance committee giving us that consideration. So it's about every day what's available, if we need them like right away, as opposed to ordering off the assembly line.
So is it up to each department to make the orders themselves? Or
The
how-
department would best be served by knowing what they needed, what they had in mind. Obviously, they would commence that process with their fiscal officer, working with the city's central purchasing department, and then getting it to full finance, and then go to the board of contract and supply for official consideration.
And then just like kind of a more detailed, but not detailed, but just looking at the list. I know this is like a vehicle purchase, but are we also allowing, like I saw furniture and brush cutters?
Yeah, this was not meant to be an exclusive vehicle list, because by its nature, it's a master asset acquisition and leasing. So yes, some departments had needs that could not be met in the operating budget, and it made prudent sense to put it on the capital map.
Okay,
And I think, I made council comment, I think that included, under the captain of public property, because they are in fact the master public property, overseeing of all assets. I think they felt that they had to be for furniture and other, well,
so I guess my next question would be, why isn't public property or the fleet manager here?
I don't have a specific response to that. I know that finance is asked to represent that. We constructed the documents from all the work that was done by the department, so I did anticipate questions when the meeting was scheduled. I did see some comments that were sent this afternoon from finance that received them from 3 o'clock today. We're here to do our job as best we can and answer questions associated with it. Remember, this is for new equipment. The needs that do exist, irrespective of the current inventory of vehicles or their condition. So we're doing our best to receive and give you confidence that this is a worthwhile pursuit of acquisition.
Councilor Sanchez, can I interrupt for a minute?
Yeah.
Sorry, we did, I recall, various departments, I never asked about 250,000 for public property, but we did talk about vehicles with the various departments, so I know that we did, ask the question of each of, in terms of their needs. And again, confirming at that time that those needs would be addressed afterwards, but to your point, not every single one
Right.
was
No, I think it would have been a little helpful, but I understand the circumstances. Because I mean, my bigger talking point or my bigger, I guess, meaning of that question is, I love Seaside and I think he does a great job, our fleet manager, but I just find it hard to believe it's one person in that role. I know public safety kind of does their own thing, so it's really just the other, but in my opinion, if we're investing this much money, and there's a great need, I think we should look at just operation or way of doing things. More forward thinking, I guess you could say, but we can leave that conversation for another day. Really my last question is, EV vehicles are not being accounted for in this at all, right?
They are put under the Department of Sustainability, and not vehicles, but chargers. And the reason for that is to identify additional locations throughout the city where EV chargers could be installed. But the Department of Sustainability is regularly and currently working on new ways to identify funding sources to acquire additional electric vehicles. And so with hopes of that happening, but also for the needs that have varied and sorted locations added to the current list. It's included under their portion of the master lease, and I believe that's a total of 100,000. They're expecting to put in 10 electric vehicle chargers at approximately 10,000 each, for a total of 100,000. So we have given recognition and deference to that department. In addition to that, I believe it's some 27 electric chargers that we have currently predominantly at municipal property.
I'm sorry.
No, please.
So I know it got brought up that parking enforcement has a few needs in their vehicles. Would they be considered part of public safety or part of general governmental departments?
They are not in the public safety. I don't think they're in the. They're not. So they would be considered part of that from that perspective.
Are there any listed in here? I'm not sure. I'm sorry. Cause I think
You got 5 new cars.
there was 5.
You got 5 new cars
Yeah.
for parking enforcement about the beginning of the year.
But wasn't it presented to us like at some point in the last like couple meetings that there was only like 3 or 4 parking?
Oh,
enforcement?
yeah, there was.
What meeting was that?
Hold
So
on,
wait a
two-
minute, not a direct
Sorry.
conversation. This is, yeah. All right, Counselor Taylor, do you ever receive?
Yeah, so what happened was there was 5 of them ordered. And correct me if I'm wrong, 2 of them came in, or 3 came in. And then another 2 just came in probably within the last month. They all 5 in at once. And they're all electric vehicles and they all have electric chargers.
Counselor Vanderbilt.
Yeah, because I also remember like Councilor Sanchez was saying that, I think it was when the police were here, they were asking about parking enforcement, they said they had to like drop people off and then pick them up, they don't set up the cars for them to be going around, but maybe.
Used to have to do that. But not now.
Okay. Does that answer the questions?
I have one question. Yes.
Wait a minute, I don't think Counselor Sanchez is finished.
I have like a separate question, but I'm done.
All right, is this a follow-up to the parking administration? All right, then Counselor Sanchez.
Thank you, Chairman. So I totally get the process for the general department vehicles. For public safety, so in the meantime, like the chiefs are gonna start looking at new vehicles to order, or what's that process?
Specs are ready to move forward to the board of contract and supply. There are a limited number of manufacturers that are able to do this type of work, particularly in the region. There's one nearby in North Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Allegiance, that manufactures Pierce firefighting. I've spoken to the representative director to see if in fact they can offer better terms. They cannot, and they don't have access to police equipment that we fire, and the terms are far more expensive than what we were able to do through our own solicitation process. But they are on standby to receive the order once we know that we have master lease financing in place and ready to move. We cannot issue requisitions, purchase orders, or purchase order any sooner than we have a firm funding source. They will not accept it.
Sounds financially
Well, we
safe
could-
for them to do.
while you would think we could pledge the cities, right into the city's appropriation authority. The vendor said, no, it's gonna take us 24 months to build. We have to know today if the money's available. And it's the reason why we have the escrow account. Right. The good news is that we're gonna be earning escrow. I don't think we could arrange for a better process than we have.
Yeah, no, it seems interesting, seems really good for the city that we're doing that. Just my last follow-up question on that specifically. So is it 5 million for police and 5 million for fire, or how's that?
The list appears.
It's on here too, okay.
It's actually 6.3 million for fire, given the size of that equipment and the cost, and 3.7 million for police. A total of 10 million one for, just slightly.
And my last question, Chairman,
Yes.
I know you mentioned that 2 master leases are coming offline. If I don't know, that's the proper terminology, at the end of this, our next fiscal year, right? How many other master leases will we have besides?
So, we had a schedule prepared by our outside fiscal advisor. Give you 1 second.
We have two other leases that come up for both the fiscal year 2028.
And it's a $5 million public safety, lease and a $15 million, equipment for other city departments. And, that matures in fiscal year 2028, which frees up another $20 million. And then, for-
20 million for, that's what we bought for, years or approximately $3 million in annual debt service payments.
Is
So that
there,
will happen until 2020.
is there anything else that we have?
As I had stated earlier, coming off the books with the next budget, 2025, will be a $13 million lighting lease. That payment is 1.6 million a year currently. The last payment we made starting July. And then there was a $9 million general government lease that was done in 2018. That comes off the books. That payment currently is 1.4 million. Taken together, that's a $3 million difference that will not be required starting in FY 26. And the very first payment under this lease on the consideration receiving doesn't occur until FY 27. We're handling it as interest only in the meantime, with interest earned from the lease escrow.
I hope it's a small question, just for my own educational purposes, Chief. Why are these called like leases and not like loans? It seems like it's a loan with the banks.
Because, well, it starts with the duration, generally anything less than 5 years, specific consumer financing. And they use the word lease because it's interchangeable with loan, so it's a loan technically. But in the world of public financing, it's always used as a master lease because the way it's been structured forever, but it is a form of finance, it's not a lease. We own the equipment from day one.
Right, that's the confusion part.
Yeah. You're right, the so-called pay me $1 at the end of the lease, that's how it began. It began as, I'll give you the money, we hold title until you finish paying, and at the end of that term, you give us $1, and now you own the equipment. With this financing, we own it from day one, it's our equipment.
Thank you.
Chief, can I just ask a follow-up question, to Councilor Sanchez, to actually, the document you're referring to on the, debt that is falling off the books, is that something that you've shared in some sort of report? I'm sure you.
I
Just
have
so
shared
that-
it, I'm happy to give it to the internal.
Would you, I mean,
It's literally the city's debt service, but we put it together to show all debt and how much it equals total each of them, and what that number will be over the next 10 years. And the good news is, without doing anything different, but including the needs we're talking about this evening, plus the capital improvement, $135 million. It will not exceed the second. In fact, in the middle of the year, it will drop to mid-60s.
I appreciate you making it available, and, Aaron, would you mind making sure that we all have a copy of that?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And then the second follow-up question on, Councilor Sanchez, the fleet manager, is that a position in public property? Okay. All right. You're right, it would have been nice to have the fleet. And is the fleet manager, he's not in charge of maintaining the entire fleet?
Well, let's talk about maintaining the fleet. If you mean the daily maintenance of
Yeah.
keeping a vehicle on the road, that's done by the individual departments who have mechanical personnel or managers or supervisors to make sure those vehicles are safe to run or need repair. From a perspective of record keeping and keeping the list of public property assets, all of that does go through public property, that does go through the fleet manager.
Thank you, that helps. Okay, Councilor Ingersoll.
Thank you. Two more quick questions. One is, follow up on Councilor Sanchez's questions about the electric vehicles. I see that the $100,000 from sustainability, but are any of the cars and trucks that we're putting in for, like, this is a $20 million wish list? Are any of these SUVs that engineering's gonna drive, or any of the ones that aren't just like driving constantly? Are they thinking at all about this thing?
Yeah, so our departments and the finance are working actively with sustainability. We actually have a quarterly working session with our external auditors to discuss the IRA credits and maximizing those for the city. So as we continue to purchase off of this list, these vehicles will be evaluated by the fleet manager, sustainability, and the department to see if investing in electric equipment is in the best interest of the city, and those decisions will be made on a vehicle by vehicle basis.
Okay. And then my very last question is, I guess before I ask the very last question, the other thing about EVs is like, depending on the cost of electricity, they can be less cost to maintain, so even if the upfront cost was like a little bit more, the overall cost to maintain is different, especially if we did such an amazing job negotiating down our electric rates. So, anyway, just to say all that. The second thing is just what's a hot pad dot box?
That's what I want to know.
That's the thing we learned about this year.
Oh, yeah.
It is a unit that you put on the back of a truck that keeps the asphalt off. So we can use it for-
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
Yes.
Well, that was one of my questions. I'm glad you answered it because I have no clue. But my other thing is, under the police, the mock vehicles and the unmarked vehicles. Why is the mock vehicle, I know you're putting, lettering on the car, but why is it double in price? 25 for mock vehicles is 80,000 plus. And 23 for unmarked is 40,000.
Yeah, so, the base vehicle for the patrol marked vehicles are Ford Explorer, which have a base cost of 47,600, which is why they're automatically starting off a little bit higher than those Chevy Equinoxes you see directly above them. To bring it up to $80,000, it includes $16,000 for lighting and upfitting, $6,700 for a radio, an MDT unit for $5,500, a 5G router for $3,200, and e-printers and mounts for $700. So they require additional equipment inside the vehicle as well to handle for a march.
Okay.
Okay. Any, yes, Councilor Vargas.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And these, so, thank you very much for being here too. These $20 million, right, for to buy all this equipment. Would be good to have, like a record, how many trucks do we have and how many of them are working, how many of them are not working? Like, to get like a little list from each department that they're asking for. And I don't see no electric vehicles in this master list. Is there any way that we can go with a hybrid? And because in the case, we don't have no electricity and something happens and, or it always is an excuse, oh, I ran out of electricity. I forgot to plug it in. Because they will find an excuse. Why we don't try to buy some hybrid cars to, and give those hybrid cars to the people who's taking the cars home? That basically, if you don't know the answer, is 90 cars that will go out of the city every day, 90. And out of those 90 cars, every day they pump, and we paying for it. And if we use hybrid, at least when the car is in parking, the hybrid is working, not the gasoline engine.
So Ms. Lindbergh will work extensively with Severe and this has asked those questions of the problem. The general answer would be that specifically at the time of need and the moment of acquisition, that determination will be investigated then, what's available. And then what the needs would be, some departments may need strictly electric, or can get by electric, while others may not want to rely on the hybrid model because of some other use, including the deployment within the police department. I've read myself recently, actually, that there were reasons why certain electric vehicles would not be used in communities for whatever reason. But I think Ms. Lindbergh has done an extensive amount of work with the departments, including in that area.
Certainly, yes, and so as I mentioned earlier, each vehicle purchase will be evaluated on a case by case basis. What is the vehicle going to be used for? Where will the vehicle be going? Who is going to be utilizing it? And those factors will determine what type of vehicle we are purchasing. That's another reason why we didn't necessarily call out the brand of vehicle, because to your point, many of these SUVs probably could be hybrid vehicles, and just because the department didn't price that at the point of submitting their budget doesn't mean we want to lose the opportunity to invest in hybrid or more eco-friendly options.
If we were trying to go up, sorry,
Yes, please.
if we're trying to go green, you're not going to follow the director's reason, like, we trying to help the environment. So if you director for Nixon Power say, oh no, I want gasoline and BA, and you will go with her, I won't go with her. I said, look, we're going to the environment, and this is the best choice to go, and this is what we have for.
Certainly, and the Department of Sustainability is also part of the conversation. So typically when we're investing in these vehicles, it's a conversation between our fleet manager, the department who's actually utilizing the equipment, and the Department of Sustainability to try to figure out what the most financially feasible and best investment is for the city.
And if I may add, Councilman, I think, the directors that did before you, I think they've demonstrated their, environmental conscientious nature, and I think they would do just that.
Thank you, I appreciate that, Chief. I think it would be helpful to the council. Certainly the finance, you have our fleet manager give us a list, you know, of the vehicles citywide, whichever are under his direction. Just in terms of numbers, you know, how many are electric? Also, I don't know if he has, I'm not sure who our fleet manager is, but if they have listed, the vehicles that are being used, the emergency vehicles, for emergencies, the ones that are being used to go home and back, would be very helpful to us.
I'm sure we can.
I appreciate that. Yes, Councilor.
I just want to follow up on one thing, and I believe the committee will remember that when the parks, especially Park and Public Works, when they were here, by street, I would ask them how many trucks were, needed to be replaced. They told me how many would pass inspection. And that's why I asked Larry if they were gonna be included. I don't know if we were here also, but that I specifically asked those how many, then they said, oh, there's 23 trucks and they're not gonna pass inspection. There's so many trucks, both departments. And that's why I asked Larry if, well, actually I put him on the spot on the first meeting to say there was gonna be 10 million, so I just want to reiterate that it was asked.
Thank you. May I the last
Yes,
one?
I'm so sorry that I interrupted you.
No, it's all right, Monitor. So who's going to be responsible for the inspection of the car? Let's say, is this the fleet manager or the person or the director of each department, like? Who's responsible?
The day-to-day personal responsibility of the condition of the vehicle, its roadworthiness, rest of the department and the employee who's assigned to that vehicle. And while they're not expected to know the legal matters, they should be able to know if the inspection certificate is expired, but I do believe that the Department of Public Property has a list of all vehicles, the registration plate numbers, and inspection expiration dates. They have overall supervision, but we rely on day-to-day employee recognition of the condition of the vehicle.
Last one.
Yes,
Thank you.
right ahead.
So, I don't, let's say we're going to buy 5 trucks into DPW. So we want to take 5 trucks out of the fleet. We bring 5 new. We want to be selling these 5 trucks to out of the country or anywhere. Can we bring that money back and start paying the $20 million? Or where's the money is going to go?
So, I think Ms. Lindbergh would probably take this question, but if I may. So, as a rule, if we're acquiring new vehicles, we have always sought to use trade-in, particularly now, with trade value being excessively higher, no matter the condition of the vehicle. We look to use trade-in that would then lower what we had anticipated initially in acquisition costs. But as you may know, Councilman, the city's ordinances require us any sale proceeds from the sale of any equipment does not go into the general fund, it goes into the capital asset fund, and it must go there by council ordinance. And therefore, while it's there, it can be by resolution asked later to have those funds, like any capital asset fund, to be used for either additional acquisitions or your the payment of debt service. But we would always attempt, particularly vehicles, dealerships like to make the best trade possible for the vehicle. That's how they get you into the lot, even though you're a municipality. And we believe it's in the city's best interest. The sale of that vehicle doesn't assist us in bringing the price down, because we can't take those funds and offset it. It has to go for the capital asset fund. This one here.
Right, I think you got that completely right, Chief. Yes. The sale of all city assets are required to go into the capital asset funds. It can be removed from that fund by resolution of the city council. But unless and until that happens, it is required to sit in the capital asset fund. Okay.
Yes, Councilor Graves.
I'm gonna go back to my previous question about the marked and unmarked cars. My brain was running. there are special equipment in the marked cars that are not in the unmarked cars, is that?
Correct.
And why is that?
So the marked cars are for patrol units and the colonel, I'm sure, has way more information on this than I do, but they're like computers and equipment that the patrol officers need while they're working in the vehicles that is not needed in the unmarked.
Okay, Counselor Sanchez.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Going back to the question that my colleague here, Councilman Vargas presented regarding the current existing vehicles. That was gonna be one of my last questions, is if we were gonna bring online 5 cars for DPW, are we taking 5 offline? But it seems a little more complex than that. I guess my first question is, I mean, have we had any conversations about, I don't know if it'd be ordinance or resolution on trying to make it possible where we could trade in vehicles at the time of sale or purchase of a new one? What is it worth exploring that option?
The normal, the standard operating procedure normally for the acquisition of vehicles, the dealers always ask, are you trading or vehicle? Even if you're pushing it into the dealership, as I understand. The answer is always yes, so they give you a value point for that vehicle's worth, subtracted from the acquisition price. That lowers the acquisition price, so on a master lease schedule, if you had intended on spending 40,000 for a vehicle, and the dealer gave you 5 for a car that was just about roadworthy, and now we only spend 35. That 5,000 stays within the master lease schedule, if you will, and can, in time, be utilized in some of the means for like equipment, same condition, same specification. If you saved on 8 vehicles, 5,000, you might be able to buy 1 additional vehicle at 40. That's the premise behind using trade-in rather than outright cash sale. It's the funds have to go to the capital asset fund, and then that process requires more elaborate means by which you can take those funds out.
So under the current way of procedures, like through our board of contract, et cetera, stuff, like we can do like that trade-in?
Yeah, because we would be going to the board of contracts for the net purchase cost.
Right.
And the bill of sale would state that, just like if we're buying as a private passenger, it state manufacturer suggested retail price, subtract any trade value, net out the door price.
Oh, okay, that definitely clarifies, because I was under the impression that we weren't able to do trade
No,
under, okay.
In fact, we encourage.
And then my last question would be, can you get us what's called the balance of the capital asset fund when getting the other information over to us?
Certainly, yeah. Like, let's say it's about 5 million off the top of my head, but maybe the exact number.
Thank you.
Okay, is that it, Counselor Sanchez? Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions? More questions or comments? I think we're done.
I think the motion to approve number 2 and number 3.
Thank you. Okay, the motion is made to recommend approval, agenda item number 2 and 3. By Counselor Taylor, seconded by Counselor Anderson. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, members of the council.
Motion to adjourn, made by Counselor Anderson, seconded by Counselor Taylor. All in favor? All opposed?
Get loud on the hammer.
Yeah, oh my God.
Hey, lady.
Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah.
Lady.
I didn't do it. Yeah.